Hello, Internet! Welcome to Full Frontal Developer. No doubt you've seen some flashy web page content in your time and wondered, how exactly is that done? Today, with only a few lines of code and a couple of simple files, we ourselves are going to be creating something super fantastic. Now, I'm actually really excited about today's project because we're going to be building a soundboard. To show you what a finished version of this project is going to look like, I will jump in here to the browser and pull up here what looks to be just a plain background with a couple of buttons labeled chicken, cow, goat, horse, and pig. And as you can imagine, when I click on one, we're going to get a fun little image of a farm animal that pops up with a accompanying audio sound. And so just something kind of fun, maybe the beginnings of a cute little game or just something for the kiddos. Anyway, the only thing that makes this project different is that we did have to source in some audio files and some images. And so doing a simple Google search and clicking on the image tab and targeting a PNG file, I was able to pull up a variety of different images of the farm animals. And all I was really searching for was just something that was going to be consistent, so something cartoonish. And we were looking for something with the transparent background, which is easy to find if you do a search for the PNG images. And then as far as the audio goes, if you go to freesound.org and you can sign up for a free account, it enables you to download all sorts of fun little audio files. So we have a chicken wave here. And really all you need to do is, if you're going to be using this commercially, is just to credit the author. And so doing a quick Google search for the images and a freesound search for the audio, that will be all of the assets that we're going to need. Additionally, I went ahead and jumped into the fonts.google.com, and I've selected a font called Poppins for this particular application, and I did a 200 weight font there. And right here under the import tab, we can copy and select the import. We'll go do a copy and select on that, and I will jump into Visual Studio and we will begin to write this application. So for this particular one, I do have two additional folders here in addition to the obligatory files. We have a folder labeled images and a folder labeled sounds, and I have respectively put the assets in, the PNG images in that folder, and then the WAV files in the sounds folder. And then in addition to that, we also have the obligatory web files, the index.html, the script.js, and the style.css for the content, the body, and then the functionality of the web page. And so this one's actually fairly simple to create. So we'll go ahead and start with the body with our index file. Since it is in fact HTML5, we're going to declare the doc type as we normally would. We'll go ahead and set up our HTML tags. We'll set the language equal to English. And then just like we normally do, we'll go ahead and begin to make our header tags. And in the header tags, we'll define a meta tag. The first one will be the character set, which is going to be UTF-8 to make sure that everything is encoded correctly. And the second meta tag will be our viewport to ensure that no matter which device is being used to look at this web page, it will be sized and scaled correctly. So we'll do a name and set it equal to viewport, and the content will be set equal to the width equal to the device width. And after that, we will do an initial scale equal to 1.0. And that's everything we need for the meta tags. After that, we'll go ahead and reference our style sheet. And that's going to be located at style.css. And then we can make a title, and we'll just call this Soundboard. That should be everything we need for the header. We'll go ahead and open up a body tag. And in the body tag, this is actually going to be fairly simple. We're going to, let's go ahead and make the ID of our body equal to container. And then inside the body tag, we're going to do a couple of audio tags. And this is going to tap into the audio elements that HTML5 provides for us. It's going to be audio. We'll give it an ID equal to each one of the animals. So we'll have an ID equal to chicken. And then we're going to define the source as equal to where we're keeping the assets. And so that audio file, which is going to be in the folder sounds/chicken.wave. And we'll go ahead and close out that audio tag. And we'll do the same thing. We'll do a copy and paste here for the other 4. And just make sure that we have cow. And in this particular case, the cow is not a WAV file. It's actually an OGG file, but you might be able to find a WAV file. Just so happened that this one happened to be an OGG file, which is still going to be valid. After that, we have goat.wave, and then horse.wave, and then finally the pig wave. All right, so now that we have the audio elements in place, we can go ahead and create a div element, and the div is going to have an ID equal to buttons, and that'll enable us to style the buttons. We'll close that out, and then we'll just make a quick reference to our script, which is going to be script.js, and that's actually everything that we need in the body. Oops. So that takes care of the HTML. We'll go ahead and save that. And we'll jump into the style.css and we'll begin to do the styling, which is also going to be fairly simple. I did do a copy and paste on that import statement, so we'll go ahead and, whoops, nope, apparently I did not. We'll jump back in here and grab that import. Just the annotation, we don't need the tags because it is going directly into the CSS file. So do a copy and paste on that. All right, then we're going to do some universal styling. We'll just do a box sizing equal to border box, and then we'll begin to style the body elements. And within that, we're going to go ahead and create a background color, and I'm going to do an RGB value in this case. RGB value, we're going to do 61, 30, 30. That's going to give us that nice kind of dark brown, kind of like a barn color, barn door color. And then we'll do a font family and make sure that we set that equal to what we imported, which is going to be Poppins, and we'll make sure that that is a sans serif. After that, we'll do a display of flex, and then we're going to do align items, center, and justify content center. We'll also do a text align, and we'll make the text align center as well. And then we're going to do a height. We're going to do 100 view heights, and then we'll do overflow hidden because we don't want any of the scroll bars to show. And then we'll go ahead and set the margin equal to 0 so that we can set the margin with each element the way that we want it. Next, we're going to go ahead and begin to style the button class. And that's going to be, whoops, the button class is going to have a background color. We'll give it just a nice light gray background color. We'll make it CCC. And we'll take a border radius there of about 5 pixels to give it a nice smooth beveled edge. And we're going to go ahead and remove the border itself. We don't want to have any border on those buttons. The color of the font is going to be an RGB value. And we're going to do 66, 6, and 6 for that. And then we'll do a margin of 1 rem. We'll also do a margin top of 640 pixels to give it some spacing there. And then we'll add some padding. Padding will be 1.5 rem and 3 rem, like so. And then a font size of 1.2 rem. We're going to inherit from the font family. And then we're going to do a cursor pointer so that we get that fun little cursor finger whenever we hover over the buttons. Now we need to style the button when they're under hover and when they're under focus. And so let's go ahead and specify button hover. And we're going to do an opacity property of 0.9. And then under button focus, we're going to remove the outline. We don't want any outline to appear whenever we're hovering over the button. Okay, and that's pretty much all the styling that we're going to need to do for this one. So we'll jump into the script.js. Let's save that, jump into script.js. All right, so now we're going to define a constant that we're going to call sounds. And this is going to be an array of all of the sound files that we have. We're going to set it equal to chicken don't forget your quotation mark, cow, goat, horse, and pig. Now, it's especially important that we name these exactly as they're named on the audio files and in the same order that they're appearing in the buttons, because we're actually going to use this array to be able to source the sounds through a special for loop. And so after we define that array, we're going to do sounds and do a for each. We're going to grab the sound, and then doing a anonymous function, we're going to go ahead and define a constant that we're going to call button and set it equal to document dot create element. And that element is going to have a button class. So it'll be a class list dot add, and the class we're going to add is going to be button. Next, we're going to define the inner text, and we're going to set it equal to the sound, and that way the text of the button will be exactly equal to the name of the sound file, and that's going to be coming from the array during each one of these loops. Now that we have the inner text of the button defined, we'll do a add listener event, and that's going to be a click listener. Whoops. That's going to be a click listener. And upon the click, we're going to pass through a function, which is going to be calling the stop sounds method, which is just going to ensure that if we happen to be clicking the buttons quickly and we're in the middle of playing one particular audio, that the playing of the next audio doesn't overlap. It'll actually stop the first audio first. And so we'll just assume that there is some audio going on, and we'll just make sure that it stops it right away before the next one plays. In the event that there's no audio, like on the first click, it won't be an issue. It'll just be stopping a null audio sound there, so there won't be any issue. So we'll call the stop sounds method. Then we're going to do a document get element by ID, and the ID is going to be our body, which we've called container. And we're going to do a set attribute, which is going to be passing through literal text style. And then we're going to use the backticks because we're going to need to pass through a template literal here. And so in order to pass through the template literal, we're going to need to use the backticks. And what we're going to be including here is going to be a background image, which is a reference to the CSS styling. And we're going to set that to a URL of, and then since we've been using the backticks since we used the backticks to initiate this, we can go ahead and use a single quotation mark to access or to reference the URL, and that's going to be in our images folder / and then what we're going to do here is we're going to use the curly brackets. So we'll first put our $sign to signal to JavaScript that we're going to be putting in a template literal. The $sign will be followed by the curly brackets, and the curly brackets will be referencing the template literal in the JavaScript, and in this case it's going to be sound. And the sound is going to be one of the elements of our array. And so after we escape the curly bracket at the end, we're going to do a .png, which is going to be a reference to the image file. And then we'll use a single quotation mark to close that out. And so just to kind of explain what's going on here, since we have this array in JavaScript that we've passed through values of chicken, cow, goat, horse, and pig as the sounds, and then as we loop through each sound, we're going to add that text to the button. We're going to then add an event listener to the button, and the event listener is going to call the styling of the CSS and set the background image to a URL, and that URL is where we're passing through the template literal of whatever the sound element is, which in this case will be chicken, cow, goat, horse, or pig, attached to a .png, and that's what's going to make the dynamic image changes a lot smoother. And so that's why it's important that these are labeled exactly as the images are, because that's how it's going to be accessing those files. And so then we can come to the end of the parenthesis there, and we'll do a semicolon because we're going to need to do a couple more styling here, a couple more stylings. We're going to do a background repeat set to no repeat. because we don't want that to be tiled across the background of the screen. We just want to have a single image in the center. And then we'll do another semicolon, and we're going to do a background position set equal to center. And then one more semicolon so that we can do a background size equal to 480 pixels by 480 pixels. And that will ensure that all of the elements are properly centered, not tiled, and all about the same size. And then after that, we'll do our closing backtick to signal that we're done with the reference to the template literal. And then we'll close it out with a parenthesis, and that should be everything we need for that one. After that, we can finish the JavaScript by adding one more line here. We're going to give myself some space here. We're going to do another reference to a document, get element by ID. It's going to be another reference to the container element. And we're going to set the style, background, and we're going to anchor it. And then lastly, we're going to do one more reference to the document, get element by ID. And this is going to be the name of our sound file. And we're going to signal it to play. And this is all going to happen whenever the click listener is, it's not going to be on play, it's just going to be play. This is all going to take place whenever the button is clicked. And so this event listener is going to listen for the click. Whenever the click happens, it's going to pass through the function of stopping any sound that might be playing, setting the background element equal to an image that's going to have the name of whatever the label or whatever the array element is. Then it's going to style the background to anchor, and then it's going to play that sound. And that's all going to happen with every single click. And so that'll be everything we need for that function to be passed through. Next, we're going to do outside of that function, we're going to do another document reference, except in this case, we're going to do a get element. We'll do a get element by ID, and it'll be buttons. We're going to grab all of the buttons, and we're going to do an append child, and we're going to pass through the button constant that we've assigned here in JavaScript. And that should be everything we need there in that main function. Now we're going to write our own function to define what the stop sound is going to do. So we'll do a function stop sounds as we've declared up here. And stop sounds is simply going to access the sounds array, and we're going to do for each sound, and we'll pass through an anonymous function, which is going to be defining a constant that we'll just call sound or SND. It'll be equal to a document get element by ID of whatever sound happens to be in the array. And we're going to grab that sound and we're going to do a pause. Not on pause, just pause. And then we're going to do a sound current time equal to 0. And that'll make sure that if there is any concurrent sound, that actually stops. So if we save this, that's actually going to be all of the scripting that we're going to need to do. So go ahead and open this up in Live Server so we can see if everything worked correctly. And if we did everything right. And of course, it doesn't work the first time, so let me jump back into our Visual Studio and see what happened here. And I think I already see what happened. We have, since I did a copy and paste, I forgot to change the IDs. And so we have an ID of chicken going across all of the all of the audio elements. So that of course wouldn't work. So we'll do cow, goat, let's see, chicken, cow, then it's goat, then it's horse, and then finally pig. Okay, let's see if that did it. We'll save that. Jump back in here. Let's reload that. All right, and it looks like it worked. So hopefully this was fun and entertaining. Just like always, the code for this entire project, including the assets, will be available in a link in the GitHub, which is going to be in a link in the description of the video. Hopefully everyone had fun, and I look forward to seeing everyone back again in the next video. Thank you so much, and have a wonderful night.